February 12th, 2026 hearing, briefing, and voting session for the Committee on Education, Energy, and the Environment. Today we have a really interesting briefing on artificial intelligence before we have our bill hearings. So senators, thank you for being here and being interested as I am. Just a couple reminders for those who are testifying or listening. Just a reminder, please make sure that anything makes noise. Won't do that during a briefing or hearing. Second, because you are here to educate us, please, please, please try to avoid using acronyms that we don't know. Translate them if you're going to use it a lot, but please make sure that we can follow along and know what you're talking about. And with that, I'm really looking forward to this briefing, and we'd like to welcome up Ray Bell, Lauren Maffeo, and C.U. Mo. Ray Bell is with DoIT, the Department of Information Technology, as is Lauren Maffeo, and C.U. Mo is with the Maryland Department of Labor. Why don't you all take chairs here on the panel? And I don't know whether you all have a preferred order for speaking.
Yeah, we have an order.
Okay, so I defer to you all, and why don't you And to control the PowerPoint, you may use the mouse that's up there. There you go. Okay, you may begin your briefing. Thank you again for being here.
All right. Thank you, Senator Kagan, for welcoming us to this briefing. We are all excited to speak with you today, particularly to update you on the progress that we've made as a state towards implementing the results of SB 818. I want to thank the senators and legislators in this room, especially Senator Hester, for advocating for that bill and all that is within it. We have made exciting, substantial progress towards implementing the effects of that bill, and my colleagues here and I are excited to tell you how we have achieved that. So as you already mentioned, today I will be joined by my colleagues Ray Bell. Ray is the AI and Machine Learning Product Director at the Department of Information Technology, also known as DoIT. I work very closely with Ray as a Senior AI ML Program Manager, largely working with agencies across the state to help them implement AI in accordance with our responsible AI use policy and implementation guidance. And we're joined by C.U. Mo, a Senior Advisor for Cyber Maryland in the Department of Labor.
Lauren,
And
I'm going to interrupt you for a second since this whole briefing is on AI. Could you define artificial intelligence? Let's just start really at that basic level before you dive into all the details about it so that anyone watching from home will understand what we're talking about.
Sure. So artificial intelligence is a series of technologies that automate tasks that a human would typically do. These are very often manual tasks that take a lot of time, and the big benefit that they have is that they can speed up the amount of time that it takes to do these particular tasks. It also takes a lot of load, both productivity-wise and cognitively, off of users, and it's especially beneficial in many areas of state government because, for instance, much of what we do involves really fine-tune reading legislation, policy documents, and one way that AI can be really substantially helpful is by succinctly summarizing that information so that we can get through more of it in less time with greater accuracy. Thank you. Thank you. So today we will introduce ourselves like we already have. We will give a little more context for the how of what our approach to implementing SB 818 and reiterating our vision for AI throughout the state of Maryland, along with giving you a preview of where we are going in 2026. This will include updating you against the 2025 strategic pillars. We, as mentioned, will talk about what's next, and we will have time for Q&A. I think it's worth starting with the state's vision and strategy for AI. We took an approach of responsible use and starting with that as our foundation. We found in Maryland that this was really critical to do because in the private sector, so many organizations start with deployment and then try to bake in responsible use afterwards. We instead took the approach that we wanted to define what responsible AI use was and let that guide us as we moved into the operational part of it. That allows agencies to operate with confidence and use AI that is approved by the state, meets our standards for responsible use, cybersecurity, privacy, and data integrity. And so to that end, the state of Maryland responsibly, ethically, and productively leverages AI and machine learning technologies to significantly improve constituent outcomes and reduce drudgery for the state workforce. We have worked on building a robust and adaptable policy along with processes, technical talent, and cultural foundations, and we're confident that this is going to serve Maryland no matter the direction that AI technology takes. This is important because AI moves very fast. What is greenfield today could be mainstream in 6 months or much less. And so we wanted to build a foundation of a house that we can build upon as this industry evolves so that we stay in alignment with industry best practices while also keeping citizens and state staff safe and productive. So our focus, as mentioned in 2025, was really twofold. It was executing against the 2025 AI strategy and roadmap and implementing the requirements from SB 818. So we are looking forward to telling you today how we have achieved that in a range of fashions. One way is that we did become a team working on AI initiatives across agencies, centralized at Do It, with the intent over time to embed AI talent across teams and agencies. And we've made substantial progress there. We started by publishing a statewide responsible AI policy alongside responsible AI implementation guidance. We knew that we wanted to give people a blueprint for how they could start using AI responsibly at their own agencies. And we really have positioned ourselves at Do It as being the foundation of a house. The idea being that if you are not sure where to go with AI, how to use it effectively, what the best use cases of AI are at your particular agency, you can always come to Do It for that guidance on how to get started. Our policies at Do It do apply to executive branch agencies, but agencies also have the autonomy to be more stringent with AI as they see fit. So we really rely on agencies' subject matter expertise to guide their use cases for AI. And we also rely on them coming to us if they ever have questions about what we might be able to do or how they might be able to leverage AI specifically. Alongside publishing this statewide responsible AI policy and implementation guidance, we also at Do It created an intake process, and this has two big benefits. We wanted to capture agencies' AI use cases so that we understand how AI is being used and leveraged across executive branch agencies. We also wanted to assign risk to use cases that our map against our responsible AI and data classification policies. We know that AI implementation and use is not equal. There are some cases where AI use is out of bounds as defined by our risk classification policy. We wanted to make sure that we had an eye on AI across agencies so that we can respond accordingly. And to that end, we did publish Maryland's first ever AI inventory across executive branch agencies. It is available on ai.maryland.gov, which is the newest maryland.gov website available. So I want to thank my colleagues at the Maryland Digital Service for helping us set that up. Alongside the inventory, which is available publicly for anyone to reference, it includes a glossary that explains various AI tools that are in use throughout Maryland agencies so that you can not only see how each agency uses AI, you also have a point of reference to know what those tools are. And to talk a little bit more about how agencies have leveraged AI and are using it to serve Marylanders today, I will turn it over to Ray.
Before Ray starts, Lauren, would you like us to wait until all three of you have spoken, or should we pause for questions after each speaker? Do you have a preference?
I think if it's okay with you, getting through the presentation would be great. We have plenty of time to answer questions at the end. So if we can do it that way, that would be fantastic.
That'd be just fine. Thank you. Good
Thank
job.
you, Senator.
Ray Bell, you're up next.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Lauren. So I'm going to take us from policy to practical implementation. We have worked with a number of agencies and number of staff amongst our state to help us implement AI responsibly and productively. The example I'm going to talk about here is from the Department of Human Services. This is their Sunbox chatbot. So this is what they have implemented in summer as a 24/7 customer service tool, which answers FAQ questions on how families can get benefits over summer. It has 17 unique users with 48 interactions, and it's been very, very successful. As you can see, it's also implemented in English and Spanish, so it's been designed with accessibility in mind from the start. Department of Human Services. Okay, the next example I'm going to speak to is a soft launch which the Department of Budget and Management have been working on. This is an implementation for Governor Moore's Government Modernization Initiative. What the Department of Budget and Management have been building is an internal chatbot using our enterprise Google tool, where it's called a gem, and what we mean by that is an internal chatbot, where they are using it for fleet management, where you can reference various different documents in terms of what is the best and the most easiest service to provide for any vehicles that need maintenance. This has really helped them move from the drudgery of sifting through rows and rows of approved vendors in various different county locations, whereas they could use a chatbot to get a more accurate answer much faster. And it also complies with procurement requirements. And so wherever a driver is located, the gem will take them to the nearest location for a specific need, whether it's an oil change, and we know that's an approved vendor as it's on the list.
All right. Alongside working directly with Maryland state agencies to build out AI technologies in-house to serve Marylanders in accordance with our responsible use policies, we've also been really focused on increasing the talent pipeline from Maryland state universities into state government. This is especially crucial for new graduates and of both high school and college. My colleague CU will speak a little bit more about that in depth, but in the meantime, I'm happy to report that over the summer of 2025, Maryland did host its first AI internship program. We worked with the Partnership for Public Service to bring 17 interns in-house to Maryland agencies to work on various AI-related initiatives at these agencies throughout their summers with us. One example of an internship project is an intern who was a rising junior at her university. She's an English major, and she worked with a state agency to build a no-code chatbot to triage public comments. To unpack that a little bit, no code means that you are not using software code to design or deploy a product. You are instead prompting it. And so what you're doing is you're giving the AI that you create instructions on how to perform a particular task, and you're giving it those instructions so that it can do it at scale. And this is, again, really critical in state government. This agency in particular had a mandate to respond to the comments that it received and had a difficulty doing that at scale in a timely manner. It did respond to all of the comments, but did so not as fast as it would have liked. So this intern worked at the agency with state staff to design and prompt a chatbot that could respond to public comments and categorize them more quickly than a human could. I want to emphasize that this project is not in what we call production, which means that it is not in use at this agency at this time. However, it did prove to be successful enough in testing that the agency is open to deploying that for use by state staff at a later date. So again, want to emphasize that we do take the approach of being incredibly diligent before deployment to make sure that these tools have been effectively scanned against our security standards. But we also do want to give our AI interns the opportunity to experiment in safe environments so that we can leverage these tools more effectively. So that's one of many examples where we had a really successful internship program in partnership with PPS, and we do plan on bringing that again. The Partnership for Public Service, and QA is quality assurance. Yeah. Okay. I also want to emphasize, one second. Another way that we saw success this year with AI was through philanthropic investment. We caught the eye through our work of many funders who wanted to invest in our work in Maryland and help it grow. We got 3 particular philanthropic investments that have really proved to be fruitful in moving our AI work forward in the state. One of those examples is a fellowship grant that we received through the Federation of American Scientists. Both the Department of Information Technology and the Department of Labor, each one funding to hire respective fellows for 2-year fellowships. The Federation of American Scientists is funding these salaries, so they are not coming out of the state budget. And so we are partnering at Do It with Labor to we also partnered with Labor to host more short-term fellows who advised us on an AI literacy program that we can use to educate the state workforce on AI and how they can use it more bespokely in their roles. We also partnered with Anthropic and the Rockefeller Foundation on an opportunity to accelerate benefits delivery and streamline housing permitting. That partnership was announced in mid-November, and it will allow us to scale the governor's work across several of his strategic pillars. So we're very excited about that opportunity, especially because it came after a successful pilot that we ran in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation over the summer. And we also, at the end of 2025, won $2.6 million to streamline public benefits access. Maryland won 2 of 7 total awards that were given out by the Public Benefits Innovation Fund. And Maryland's Department of Human Services and the Department of Labor will use these funds to improve access to SNAP and Medicaid using AI. This is especially pertinent given the requirements coming out of H.R. 1. And so we do plan on using that philanthropic money to directly address the challenges that those requirements could bring and allow greater access to benefits for Maryland citizens. This is also especially exciting because these are investments in our work that do not cost taxpayers extra money, and we want to be very cognizant of continuing that approach as we move forward so that we are improving productivity and helping to balance the budget. Sorry, one second.
You use a scroll.
Can you?
There you go.
One second. All right, so to talk about the deep dives into critical domains, I will start by handing it back to Ray, and then we will transition to CU so he can speak about the work that the Department of Labor is doing to future-proof the state for AI.
You can just go at this point.
There you go. Wait a minute. Is it? There you go. Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to brief you all today. And I would like to update the committee on some of the progress that we have made in the Department of Labor in analyzing AI impacts on the workforce. Broadly speaking, we are analyzing the impact of artificial intelligence that it's having on the workforce in alignment with the strategy on 3 broad areas. The first one is statewide workforce, both public and private. The second area is state government workforce. Those are the folks who serve in the state government. And then finally, how AI is impacting licensed and certified occupations. One of the key things that I want to mention is that AI is changing rapidly. And it is through talking to stakeholders is how we are learning about how AI is being adopted in the private sector and public sector. And one of the things I want to highlight for the committee is that some of the ongoing efforts that we have. For example, in stakeholder engagement, we had in the governor's workforce board had a working group that had a survey on employers to figure out what are some of the gaps that are necessary for their workers. And about a third of those, as you could see in the report that has been sent to the committee, about a third of the respondents said the biggest need is to have more skills training for their workers. The other thing that we are also working on is the Maryland Higher Education Commission, as well as the Department of Labor, work together to convene a series of conversations with employers in the area so that we can learn about how AI is being adopted and what type of skills they're looking for in the upcoming talent. Broadly speaking, the work is still ongoing. I'm going to go to the next slide to show you one of the researchers that I want to highlight. If you can look at when you look at job postings today, opportunities looks a lot more like diamond. There are a lot of job openings for folks with experience, but not as many job openings for folks with entry level, people who are just graduating from universities, from two-year colleges. If you look at the chart on the right on the slide, you could see that in the last few years, occupation job posting growth for all occupation grew, can't really see it from here, but grew by about 5%. And entry-level jobs grew about 8%. But the jobs that are most exposed to AI, according to our research, has dropped by 7%. And then jobs for entry-level for the same category has dropped by 20%. But I want to stress that there are many factors for this to happen. The analysis is still ongoing, but opportunity surely looks like a diamond today. So one of the research I want to kind of point out, it's from the U.S. Department of Treasury. They analyzed the data based on jobs available in every state, and then as well as the tasks for every sort of like job and occupation profile that are most impacted by AI. You could see that for that particular report, Maryland, it's ranked as number 2 as most exposed. But I want to stretch that high exposure means that higher share of the task could be augmented, automated, or reshaped by AI. It doesn't necessarily mean job loss. And Maryland can be a proving ground for solutions because we have a lot of jobs that can be impacted by AI. So that could be a way for us to explore some of the policy solutions in this regard.
One second, Mr. Chair. How are we handling questions? We're waiting till the end?
You already talked about that. We're going to wait.
Here, let me just say, we only got 2 more pages left in our presentation.
Just walked in.
We got just a couple more pages. We'll start with Senator Watson when we get to, oh, I'm sorry.
We already, sorry.
Okay, I came in late, so you tell me.
Yeah, sorry. So Lauren preferred that everyone finish their testimony first, and we had lots of time for questions afterwards, because there definitely can be a bunch of questions. So Senator Watson, Mr. Chair, all that. So that was their preference.
Okay, why don't you guys proceed, and then we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Okay. So again, from the same report, these are some of the fields that are most exposed to AI. You could see from material science to finance to communications to a lot of the engineering work or computer science work, cybersecurity work. Again, this is one report. The Department of Labor is still doing our analysis on our end to make sure that things are more specific for the state of Maryland, but this is sort of like the research from the U.S. Department of Treasury. Broadly speaking, this is how we sort of like plan to work forward in any of the workforce initiatives we may have. We want to make sure that we are aligning with the economic priorities for the state. We want to bolster Maryland's strengths in lighthouse and growth industries. Department of Labor, through the Cyber Maryland program, announced that we will be investing $1.5 million in cyber and AI clinics. That solicitation is already open and ended, and awards will be announced very, very soon. The second imperative that we have is that we want to leave no one behind. We want to make sure that Marylanders have the opportunity to gain AI skills that are necessary for the upcoming AI-powered economy. In this sense, we'll be investing $1.5 million in Lighthouse and AI internship program that will be announced very soon to make sure that entry-level folks have the opportunity to gain the in-demand, hands-on experience necessary for them to be competitive in the marketplace. And then related to that, we will also be announcing Lighthouse Industries upskilling and reskilling program to make sure that incumbent workers or workers in those industries have the opportunity to reskill and upskill for opportunities to the future. And then finally, we are definitely maximizing resources from philanthropy. We're working with, CoPath, which is a program funded by philanthropy to make sure that more students from Maryland can land internships in the state, and Innovate US, which provide free AI training for some of the state employees as well. Okay.
Thank you all for your testimony, your briefing, and your expertise. Lauren, were you going to add something else here?
I was going to give a brief wrap-up of our plans for 2026, but I am happy to turn it over for questions if you would like.
I have a lot of questions, and since Senator Watson raised his hand first, why don't you kick us off? But I know I've got a list of like 5, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
No, thank you very much for this, and this is very, very timely. And I have spoken to the governor several times to say that AI is here, it's going to displace workers, and the state cannot afford to absorb all of these knowledge workers, right? Going back to your AI exposure index, you have DC #1, Maryland #2. Is that correlated to the government jobs that these folks have that can, in my opinion, easily be automated?
Well, we are still doing our internal analysis. I think one of the things that we want to be mindful of is just because a job, like the task itself, can be done by AI, it could also mean that we are augmenting the task itself, right? Someone just more efficient, like for example, summarizing emails, right? So that doesn't mean that it will replace someone reading the email. So we are still doing our internal analysis on the jobs that are most impacted within Maryland, and when we have that, we can share that with you for sure.
I'd be interested in that correlation, and I just have a sense of where this conversation will go, and we'll see groups come in here that are going to demand legislation be put in place to minimize the displacement of workers, and it just can't happen if you want to save money. It's just the way it is. It's a fact of life. And so my interest is really on how we're upscaling or reskilling, the current workforce. So more than just using ChatGPT, but really allowing them to be more so AI experts. And I'm not talking about training everybody in Python, but so they can really continue to maintain, the monetary revenue that they get coming in. There's no way that current workers can compete with these young folks who are going to be coming out of college with today's modernized skills, be willing to accept half of what the current workforce is getting, and these folks are going to be able to compete. And that is my biggest fear and my biggest worry is, 5-10 years now, what does this workforce really look like? And recognizing that we've lost so many people, and came to me yesterday, who are out of a job, used to work for the federal government, and they're trying to figure out what to do, but they were managers. Mm-hmm. They were managers. They were not the technical talent that you would see in these organizations. And I struggle with how to advise them. I don't know what to tell them. And so anything you can say that to help me out there, but I just see this train moving forward. Maryland has to stay on the forefront. We cannot just put blinders on and say, we're going to put up all these guardrails and everything, because we'll lose not just a technological advantage, but the ability to streamline operations, processes in government, and to save money, which is what every citizen wants us to do. And we're kind of in a tricky situation, but I appreciate you guys being here and what you've presented.
Okay, I don't see others with questions, so I guess I will launch into some of mine. Again, thank you, and this is so huge, and I'm sure Senator Hester has a bunch that she's going to add. First off, FYI, the ai.maryland.gov, top right corner, translate button, broken link. So if somebody listening can make sure that gets fixed, that would be great. So one of the things that I'm curious about is the fact-checking, the accuracy. And it's got on that page, ai.maryland.gov, it used the word accurate or accuracy one time. That's my biggest concern, is people think it's easy peasy, and they take it as gospel, and so often the accuracy is not there. Could you speak to how that would be in our agencies and departments, let alone among the general public?
I can, Senator. You're right to be concerned about that because we have a bias towards machines being correct the more often we use them. And we're very mindful in Maryland that we always have to be using AI with a critical eye. And we've always been clear and will continue to be clear with our executive branch agencies that use AI that humans are not only in control, they are expected to confirm the accuracy of any AI output they produce, whether it's code, whether it's a summary, whether it's a document. We always require humans in the loop for any use of AI across the executive branch for state business. We do not automate decision-making in any capacity, so AI is not allowed at executive branch agencies to make decisions about who should receive benefits or anything similar. And so every state worker is responsible for using AI in accordance with our responsible use policy, and we always require a human in the loop to validate that what they've received from AI is accurate. So it is meant to be a tool to improve productivity and help deliver state services more effectively and faster, but we do not allow people to relegate decision-making to it or to have it have the final say.
So that's reassuring, and I guess I'm going to be dubious here, which is how do we know? A year ago, my office came up with and crafted an AI policy for our office, and one of the rules was that it has to be disclosed. I used this for AI for just this portion of it, then I researched, I edited, I modified, I added. This website is directed to agencies, which is interesting. It doesn't seem to be designed for the general public. So could someone in a small business, a nonprofit, a student, a professional, go to this website to learn information? The submit an idea is submit an idea for using AI at your agency. I'm wondering if this is just sort of an intro space. So I know that was like 3 questions all at once. If you can take a hack at it, that'd be great.
You are correct. It is an intro site. We would call that a version 1 site that we intend to build out over time. And we did take an approach here of speaking to 2 audiences on ai.maryland.gov. We wanted to speak to agency staff across the executive branch who might not know what our AI policies are, where to find them, and how various agencies are leveraging AI. We also wanted to provide information for Marylanders and legislators so that they can see what has been passed, what our approach is, how the state is using AI. So it's meant to be a dual resource, and that's a unique approach for a Maryland.gov website. I can say it follows best practice across other states. So if you go to ai.california.gov, ai.georgia.gov, several states take this dual audience approach because the idea is that they ultimately want to be the evergreen source in their state for how the state is leveraging AI. So we do take that posture at the moment, and we do have plans for consistent updates of the content to make it more Marylander focused. But for now, we did want to start with that internal executive branch audience with intent to build it out over time.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I'm going to continue to check in for, here we go, Senator Hester.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And I'd like to thank the Department of Labor and the Department of IT for coming today. And preface what I'm going to say with an acknowledgement that none of you are here. We're here in 2024 when we passed Senate Bill 818. So colleagues, many of you were here. And I just want to remind us what was at the back end of Senate Bill 818, because this, I mean, if we believe that artificial intelligence is the way of the future, and it's going to be ubiquitous and change our our state, much like the advent of electricity or the Industrial Revolution, then I think we have to be thinking just a bit broader than the conversation I've heard thus far. And so there was an AI enablement roadmap that we passed, and at the back end of that, there were questions asked in 11 critical domains. And I just want to read you kind of the questions. Just colleagues, are you paying attention? I want to read you the questions that we have in the back of this roadmap, because I think these are the right questions to be asking. And to the departments, I really want to know kind of what you need from all of us in order to make forward progress in these bigger areas. So the first area of discussion was workforce. And we had, a plan to study the use of AI in the state workforce, including opportunities to upskill in the workforce. And I noticed in the governor's state of the state, he did mention that there was $4 million for upskilling, which I was really happy about. The second area was critical infrastructure. And so the question that we asked was about AI, the use of AI in critical infrastructure, including guidelines for owners and operators to incorporate risk management into critical infrastructure. So that's our telecommunications, our hospitals, our transportation. We asked about local school systems and how we should be, and what were going to be the recommendations to the state on the responsible and productive use of AI in our local school systems. Then we asked about healthcare and human service delivery and how AI was going to be incorporated in that field. We asked about cybersecurity and how we were going to use AI in both the discovery and the remediation of the vulnerabilities in cybersecurity and data management across state, local governments, and school systems. We asked about economic development, and Senator Watson, I mean, this is close to your heart, that we asked how AI could be used to support job and business creation and growth in the states. The data privacy, criminal justice, public safety, a plan to study the use of AI for public safety purposes, including whether and how such technology could be used and with what safeguards. We asked the department to look at licensed and certified occupations and whether the regulatory board should be doing something about AI, elections, and procurement. And so this report was due in December of 2025. And I believe when we asked for the briefing, we asked specifically for some analysis that answered those questions. And I believe Department of Labor has done a decent job in starting to answer those questions. But fundamentally, I mean, where are you guys with this report? And if we want to make big steps here in the state of Maryland around artificial intelligence, what do you guys need in order to really answer these with the kind of depth and seriousness that I believe they deserve?
I would say, Senator, that we took a cross-functional approach with the subcabinet where we put ownership of answering those questions into each respective agency, because even though the AI enablement team at the Department of Information Technology governs the responsible use of AI across the executive branch agencies, we don't want to usurp the subject matter expertise of the secretaries and staff at each respective agency. So we left it to them in partnership with the subcabinet to define their own questions and their own needs to execute their own strategies. So you heard from CU today because Labor is doing a lot of substantial work around preparing Maryland to address the challenges that AI might bring, as well as the opportunities for new graduates. And likewise, other agencies have submitted their own responses to that report. My understanding is that folks got a copy of these deep dives prior to this session. If you did not, please let us know, and we are happy to provide them. We'll make sure you do after this.
Senator Carozza, followed by Senator Washington.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I also want to associate my comments with Senator Hester. I think those roadmap questions, look towards the future, and I think it's important to address them. I want to better understand, and which I think you started to do in this presentation, of like what we're doing now and the practicality. And I, consistently bring up constituent services. When we think about our constituents, turn to us when they're having an issue with state government. So I was interested in your slide where you had the 2.6 million to streamline public benefits access. And I was trying to better understand how AI is used to, I guess in some cases, help the technology can be used, number one, to expedite, and then perhaps better serve constituents. So that's my one question, to try to better understand that practical application. And then my second question was, I think picking up a little bit on Senator Watson and Senator Hester, it seems to me that we're talking about training a future workforce to use AI, that AI becomes a tool which can help us in these other areas, which means you're talking about when, there's been questions about the technology displacing, but I think what I'm hearing is if you use AI the right way as a tool, you're actually going to need people trained to do that. So I guess my question combined is, tell me now how we're using AI to improve constituent services in state government, and two, how can we make sure that AI is being used as a tool but not to replace human decision makers?
That's the first question first.
Yeah, you can go first, and then Ray will go.
Okay. So I answer your second question first on workforce, and then Ray would answer the first question. So on workforce, the grants that we have out, for example, in Cyber and AI Clinic, it is about using AI as a tool to help someone to do a job better. So the training is around that, and cybersecurity happens to be one of those areas in which both the offensive and defensive side would use AI. So there's always going to be need for AI and people to have those skills. So we are running a pilot on that to kind of learn how to make sure that folks are learning the right AI skills and whatnot, and have the sort of like, not just AI skills, but also transferable skills, right? That could be helpful in the future.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer the first question on how AI can help within the sectors you're interested in. AI can help a number of ways, and this money will be allocated to exploring how that can. So if we take a step back and think, what are the capabilities that AI has today and how it can be used? We mostly talk about generative AI. So these are the ChatGPTs, the things you're familiar with there, where they can summarize information, create new information. If we think of very specific use cases, we have been piloting in cases where things like AI can help with public comments, for example. There is many comments can come through, and how could AI possibly help get through this ginormous backlog that a human may need help with? Going to Senator Kagan's question, the first important part is responsible AI, and to make sure it does the thing that you want it to do. So if it's something like classifying comments into positive, negative, neutral, you still need a human in the loop to make sure this is doing the thing. But that's how AI can work in cases like that. And there's many other cases of kind of as adjudicators and checking if information is complete, as constituents who fill in information that AI can also help with.
Just one follow-up. I'm going to go back to constituent services. So when I think about the volume that some of us have, there's been two kind of key areas where there's been backlogs, extensive backlogs. One is when we had the unemployment claims during COVID, and just, the system just wasn't set up to handle that incoming, where you truly had your constituents who needed those benefits, but then there was also that question of fraud and who was taking advantage. So one, I'm trying to understand how AI could help in a situation like that. And then currently, we have a lot of constituents that are having, that they're just not able to pay their taxes with the current system. So there's a backlog of constituents who are saying, I tried to pay my taxes, I couldn't online, now I'm getting penalties, now I'm getting notices. And in some cases, in the thousands of dollars, and these are, small businesses and, middle-income families. So I'm trying to figure out how AI specifically can help in those, in those areas.
I appreciate the question, and I wouldn't be able to answer all of your questions here, but I would love to take it offline and chat with you further about these things of, how AI could help in these.
But I would also like your department to go back to, whether it's Department of Labor or the Comptroller's office, to say, this is how you could use AI to help address these backlogs. Thank you.
Mr. Bell, I can understand for a super deep dive that taking it offline makes a lot of sense. I can assure you that there are probably several of us, if not all of us, who would be interested in in Senator Carrozza's question, because we all had constituents who had problems with unemployment insurance at the Department of Labor and not being able to get support and huge delays and us needing to intervene. It was a problem. So I think a lot of us would be curious as to what the answer could be with AI. So, okay. Thank you, Senator Carrozza. Senator Washington, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you for coming. And I appreciate your interpretation, coming from your field to address our questions. But I think what my colleague began this with is that our questions are as important as the answers. In other words, there are just very large questions that we need to contemplate and need help contemplating in order to begin to even start supporting any kind of administrative integration of these. I mean, just the other day, we've got, you're calling them users, but we have AI actors. There's talks of AI as, are they persons? Are they getting married? Where does this, the larger questions. And so I know I'd like, if you all aren't, or just where would that happen? Are these questions the administration needs to ask? Are these questions, who's liable if there is an error in some information that is put forward? I had an example of just, you all might remember after we voted on the floor about whether it's the Seahawks or the Patriots. Well, my wife, we were looking it up online because we heard that it was on CNN, and the summary at the top referred to a male as he. In other words, it said that a Maryland senator said that his wife asked him to vote for the Patriots. So there are assumptions built in. If one is saying wife, one must be male. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. So in contemplating its use with regard to our DHS and our populations, those sorts of assumptions that are built into it could have tremendous impacts. Assumptions of gender, assumptions of religion, assumptions of age, so these are just, I guess these are, rather than just the quick, how do we use it, there are very fundamental questions. So beginning with the ones that the senator had, where do we go for that? And I don't believe it is, you all, because you're implementing it, but before this gets, well, it is far, it's going to be everywhere. There are some very broad policy, philosophical, civil rights, things, they're going to impact every aspect of what we do.
Okay.
Who's
So I
having
think,
those
questions of bias we've all heard about, and then questions related and unrelated about liability. Are those basically your two directions, Senator Washington? Okay. Can we
I'm
start
just
with
saying
those two? Liability for inaccurate information, and then bias? And then let's go back. We can come back.
Yeah. Well, I can speak to the first question regarding liability as it pertains to AI use in the executive branch across agencies. We do hold everyone who uses AI to the highest standards of accuracy, and that does involve cross-checking all information that AI gives so that you can correct it before you would deploy it for more people to use. In other words, you're responsible for making sure that whatever it outputs is correct before you would share that information with others. And so ultimately, that means that everyone still has the autonomy when they use AI in a Maryland executive branch context. It also means that you are responsible when things are incorrect. If, for instance, someone were to do what you just said in your example and give that incorrect labeling, that person would be held accountable. Now, that's a minor example, but we do hold people accountable for ensuring that they use AI responsibly that way. And that is also why we have enterprise-approved AI that meets our state standards for responsible use, and we do not allow anyone to use just any tool. They must use the AI that the Department of Information Technology provides because it has met our standards for use.
So do we have in our law somewhere that there is grounds for someone to sue, or, their responsibility as an employee, right? That's one thing. But if the state somehow, we make errors, or the state makes errors based on information, I mean, there's no way that, for example, the case with me, I don't know that there's any, there wouldn't be anything that would flag that, oh, this is wrong, unless there was a photo of me, so I don't think there's going to be situations where you can always detect the error because of just the, what's fed into the system. So I get that. So but I hear what you're saying. You're saying like the staff would be responsible, but has there been any discussion about, liability and just the broader issues that impact this?
I do speak with attorneys general at various
great.
agencies, and I don't have a particular answer to your question at this moment, but I'd be
Great.
happy to look into it for you and could connect you with our agency attorney general if you would like.
Yeah, and again, this is not just for me. I'm just saying, any answers that you find, I think it would be for the committee as a whole. But thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'll toss one of mine in and then go to Senator Hester, if that's okay, because I still have several. I'm going to ask a broad question. If AI is going to be incorporated in so many aspects of government and of our lives, can you tell us a place where you think AI should not be used? And is the agency, the Department of Information Technology, Department of Labor, are you all communicating that, if there is such a thing?
We are. So we, for instance, in the Department of Information Technology, do not allow AI to be used to determine who should and should not receive benefits. So that is considered out of bounds. It's considered too high risk. And that's an example of where it is not allowed for that particular instance. And again, every executive branch agency is welcome to add on to our responsible AI guidance, but they must abide by it. So that is an example of AI that we consider out of bounds due to high risk.
Love that. Anything else that the other two panelists? Okay, before I shift to Senator Hester, I just want to acknowledge that some of the governor's wonderful staff is in the room. Melissa Ross, who used to work in this space, in this committee a bunch of years ago, and we loved having her here and always enjoy having her back. And former delegate Tony Bridges is here. He's now on the second floor with the governor. I don't know if there are others that I can't see, but we appreciate your presence and not just watching online, but showing that you care what we're asking and what we're concerned about. So thank you for being with us today. Yeah, and thanks for what you do every day. So, Senator Hester?
Yes, so apparently the email was sent to the wrong email. So I now have received the reports, and there are indeed like 10 reports, one from each agency. It's kind of a shame because I was hoping to discuss them during this briefing. But if anybody else doesn't have them, I now do, and I can forward them to our committee. Generally, if people forward things to committee council, then the committee council distributes them to the group. But anyways, I am delighted that we now have these reports. I think what we need to do, though, is look at the reports against the original questions and figure out kind of what the next steps are, because I think it's really important that we're working on everything that you guys are doing. But as we mentioned, it's spread across the entire state of Maryland, and there were 11 different agencies working on this, and it's going to be important that we read these and respond appropriately. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Hester. I'm not seeing others with questions, so I will ask two. Oh, Mr. Chair, please.
Well, two things. This email that we don't know what email, maybe clearly. In the future, like any correspondence, please include committee counsel Devin, because he did not receive it. And then secondly, I happen to know this because lately I've been getting a lot of AI-related stuff. We have some bills floating, but on the issue of civil suits and liability, there is actually a piece of legislation floating around the House of Delegates right now dealing with civil suits, and specifically I'm looking at House Bill 712. So there are people thinking about bills in this space on litigation lawsuits. I just want to put that out there. And so with that, I'll yield back to you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two things. Your PowerPoint talked about internships, and I just want to make sure, since we've got the governor's folks here, DSCI, the Department of Service and Civic Innovation, just want to make sure that they're going to be included because they are a part of our future workforce.
Yes, they definitely will, and I'm in close contact with their CIO.
Excellent. And then the chair just talked about pending legislation. Today, the Senate gave final approval to Senator Hester's deepfake legislation about elections. And Mr. Bell, I don't know if you want to speak to Do It was my awesome partner on using 311, using AI in a statewide 311 to lighten the load on our 911 centers. And I have to give a shout out to Sarah El-Alami, who's right behind me, who was an amazing partner. Don't you think that's the most brilliant use of AI that you could imagine?
I appreciate all the work you did there, and Sarah as well for coordinating the work with Do It on that.
I'm hearing most brilliant ever. That's what I'm hearing you say. Okay, thank you all. I see no other questions from colleagues. Devin, you're good? Is there anything you need to ask? Okay, I think this concludes the briefing, and we will need to take a quick break before our hearings, colleagues, but I'm going to toss it to the chair to tell us when we're back. But just really want to appreciate the Department of Information Technology, the Department of Labor, the Governor's Office, and everyone who's involved with educating us and incorporating this exciting and a little bit scary new technology. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll ditto that. So thank you for coming in. We will take about it's 2:03. Here, let's take a 12-minute break. Be back here 2:15 to do our bill hearings, and then we'll immediately follow that with voting. So 2:15, come back here, and we're going to proceed with bill hearings. Okay, guys?
Thank you.